What if Kageyama went to Shiratorizawa? I posed a similar question in my video, what if Oikawa went to Shiratorizawa? And in this video, we are going to find out what would happen if Kageyama went to the powerhouse of his prefecture. The reason Kageyama doesn't go to Shiratorizawa in the show is because he failed the entrance exam. For this video, let's pretend Kageyama was let into the school on an athletic exemption, so he isn't actually smarter, but sports recruiting is just a bit more problematic. So Kageyama gets into Shiratorizawa as a freshman just months after he was benched in his final match of his middle school career, and honestly there's a good chance that he rides the bench for his first year or at least first tournament at Shiratorizawa. Before we continue any further, I want to make it clear that there are many different possible outcomes for Kageyama at Shiratorizawa, and while I'll talk about a few of them here, please let me know down below what you think would happen if he got into the school. As we know, Kageyama is one of the most talented players we see in Haikyuu, however, his ability to work with and understand his teammates is suspect at best at the start of the series. In middle school, Kageyama got benched in his final tournament because he wasn't setting passes that his teammates could connect with. This is Kageyama's major block as a character and volleyball player. He has the skill to place the ball anywhere, but fails to understand where his spikers actually want him to put the ball. In the series, Hinata is the character that pushes him forward in his development because he is the one person who has the speed and trust to hit Kageyama's craziest passes. For all of the talent on Shiratorizawa, there isn't a player like Hinata that could hit the fastest sets that Kageyama wants to give. So is that it? Kageyama goes to the best school in the prefecture, a school that placed top 8 at nationals with this core, and just isn't able to grow at all from middle school, becoming just a name in a long list of players with immense potential that never lived up to it? I don't think so. One of the early issues that Kageyama and the entire team would run into is communication. You can't win at volleyball if you don't have good communication skills. All 6 players on the court need to be in sync or they will have no chance at staying on the court. I think this could be a bit of a problem, at least at first. Kageyama and Ushijima would be the most interesting part of this change. Ushijima is overwhelmingly the best player Kageyama would have ever played with at this point, and he is the entire focus of the team. In every situation, the goal is to get the ball to Ushijima, and he will make sure to score points. The system of give it to Ushijima in every situation doesn't really fit into Kageyama's style. Even though Kageyama struggles to communicate at the start of the series, he still analyzes every possible play he could, looking for the best avenue of attack. If he thinks a quick over the middle would be the best move, then I have no doubt that he will make that choice. It is important to mention that Shiratorizawa is already playing Shirabu over a more talented third-year setter in Semi because Shirabu puts Ushijima above all else. The decision to start Shirabu over Semi is a calculated one by Washijo. In Season 3, we see some of the setting skills of Semi, but also Shirabu only really has a few bad sets that cause them to lose to Karasuno. In this discussion of Shirabu and Semi, we are talking about 2 good players, but neither of them are stars. Kageyama has the potential to be a star. That is why, at least, he will be given a chance to start right away. I imagine their first practice game going somewhat like this. Kageyama is given the start because of his overwhelming talent on the court. If Shiratorizawa wants to have its chance at winning nationals, they will need to take a risk and at least see if they can get the job done with Kageyama at center. The start of the first game goes simple enough. Kageyama has some good serves that set him apart, and he's getting the ball to Ushijima. However, a moment arises. A triple block is hedged to Ushijima. He has no trouble scoring today, so the smartest thing to do would be to continue feeding your best player. But Kageyama feels an opening. Tendo is open on a quick, and Kageyama, without hesitation, throws one of the sets that got him benched in middle school, and he sends the ball to Tendo, but no one is there to hit it. Tendo questions if anyone could have hit that set at all. Ushijima glares at him, not understanding why he didn't get the ball, and Washijo starts to contemplate putting Shirabu in the game, because Kageyama isn't ready to lead this team. They can't waste the final year of Ushijima. I think that is a totally possible scenario, and for the first tournament of Kageyama's high school career, maybe he rides the bench for the entire tournament, and Shiratorizawa ends up making it to nationals and places in 8th, just like in the show. Kageyama would get a chance to pinch serve at times, but nothing major enough to give him a chance to really prove himself. But after the defeat at that stage, there would be something brewing in the minds of every single player on the roster. If we want to make it to the next step, we need to give Kageyama a chance. Everyone sees his skill in practice and knows that it is only a matter of time before they are forced to go with Kageyama over Shirabu. If they want to win nationals, they must take a chance. Dialogue around sports often comes down to situation and fit. One of the best aspects of Haikyuu is how it continuously interrogates the importance of situation and how important it can be for a player's development. I totally agree with this. The situation an athlete is put into is critical to their development, but I also think that there are a few things that any individual must have to make them succeed in sports, and that is the perseverance to keep trying. Kageyama is obsessed with volleyball and getting better at it. This is a guy who does finger exercises daily and literally only thinks about volleyball. Other distractions will not be an issue for him. He also gets a chance to be coached by a vet of the game in Washijo who tends to empower unorthodox players as long as they are effective. There is also evidence in Haikyuu that yes, the situation is important, but there are many other reasons why a player might not reach their potential. Hinata is a perfect example of this. Kageyama isn't the only person who gets potential out of Hinata. Atsuma likely would have been able to do the same for him. I think we could reach a similar conclusion with Ushijima and Kageyama. One of the key realizations for Kageyama's development is trusting in his spikers and letting them hit shots they are comfortable with. Kageyama has to learn how to trust in the players around him, and who better to put your faith into than Ushijima? One of the most satisfying developments for Kageyama comes in the Kamomedai match, when he is so willing to lean on Asahi and give him the kind of sets to make him succeed, even if they aren't necessarily the quickest or getting around triple blocks by the set alone. And if Kageyama ever gets to the level that he reaches in the Kamomedai match, the results would be unbelievable. Ushijima would not care what Kageyama says to him or how he might want to speed him up. Ushijima plays at his own pace and lets everyone on both sides of the court warp around him. After a bit of practice, Kageyama would end up getting great sets to Ushijima, and I do think that connection would thrive relatively quickly. Ushijima would not be afraid to tell Kageyama to set the ball higher or to a different location, and Kageyama would easily be able to do that for him. We know that Kageyama is a monster on the court, and just giving good sets to Ushijima would not be enough to satisfy him. Kageyama would then challenge Washijo's style of play entirely. The structure of Shiratorizawa comes down to the fact that they only have one star, but Kageyama is so obviously a second star with a similar kind of talent level to Ushijima that Washijo, I think, would be forced to change his style at least a little bit. And now let's examine what the perfect outcome would be if Kageyama would join Shiratorizawa. After just a handful of practices and trial games, Kageyama yields to the immensely talented Ushijima, making sure to get him the ball in high sets that give Ushijima a lot of flexibility. But Kageyama also knows that a player like Tendo and Goshiki still have a lot to offer, and he starts working them into the offense even more. And Washijo allows this, knowing that for them to reach a new level, they must let Kageyama use his overwhelming talent to dictate the pace and flow of the game alongside Ushijima. Even in this perfect situation, blending the playstyles of two rising stars, I still feel like Kageyama would be losing something not being paired with Hinata. He wouldn't have their devil move that goes so fast no one can see it. Minus tempo just wouldn't be in play with Shiratorizawa's roster. Perfect scenario for Kageyama may never be able to be cultivated because he doesn't have his greatest weapon on the court. But on the other hand, he would turn into the ideal setter in many other aspects. Kageyama would be able to balance the egos of multiple star players while helping push forward a style of play that perfectly blends together the overpowering nature of Shiratorizawa with the teamwork and flow of Karasuno. Shiratorizawa would again be an elite powerhouse for the next handful of years, and Kageyama would be immediately recognized as one of the best rising stars in Japan. The evolution of potential, and if a person makes good on that potential, comes down to a variety of things that we can never really know for certain if it was inevitable or not. In Haikyuu, it almost seems inevitable that Kageyama is going to figure it out one day, because he's just too dedicated and talented not to succeed at volleyball. But he did fail in his first big moment of his young career. He was benched, and by putting him on Shiratorizawa, a team with a very delicate balance and hierarchy very well might not have worked. If Kageyama refused to get out of his own way and just set the ball to Ushijima, then at least for that first year he would have likely rode the bench, and maybe would have thought what could have happened if he went to a smaller school in a more free situation. But if Kageyama wants to keep playing volleyball, there will always be better players to come along and challenge him. The only way to overcome those better players in a sport like volleyball is to make sure that the team of 6 that you play with is functioning at all levels. If Kageyama ever wants to reach his potential, he will have to learn how to play with other players of equal talent to him. And in the end, I think if that challenge comes earlier in his career, he will still be able to overcome it. Thinking about Kageyama going to other schools, I wonder if there's a spot where it seems likely that he wouldn't have been able to make a difference in his style of play. What if he went to Alba Josai and he played with essentially the same team that rejected him? I think this situation would be far more detrimental to his development. Kageyama would again sit behind Oikawa and would have to overcome so much just to regain the trust of his teammates. I think it would be detrimental to him, and it would either result in him just transferring schools or never reaching his true potential. And then think about a school like Fukurodani and putting him with Bokudo and his way up and down personality. I don't know if that's something that Kageyama right out of middle school would have been able to handle if he was in Tokyo, but the overwhelming talent and perseverance of that team could end up working in his favor in the long run. And with all this being said, let's go through Kageyama's journey with Shiratorizawa one last time and look at some specific matchups they would have to go through to get to the top. Kageyama gets his entrance exam waived and joins Shiratorizawa, the school of the elites. He hits the gym as quickly as he can to find Ushijima, the star of the team, is already there practicing. A smile creeps on Kageyama's face, and he is ready to get to work. Passing to Ushijima goes easy. Both of these supremely talented players know exactly what they need to do for each other. However, he struggles with the rest. Kageyama starts to overthink some things and other passes go awry. It is simple when he passes to Ushijima, but the others, not so much. Then, in a practice match, Ushijima gets blocked, and Kageyama knows that it would have been the best interest of the team to go up the middle. Kageyama tries it next time, but he makes the pass too early and no one connects. Soon enough, Kageyama is riding the bench, and Shirabu is starting at setter. Washijo makes the bold choice to go with Shirabu in their first tournament, placing in the top 8 at Nationals, just like we see in the anime. However, the team understands that at this point, they will never be able to take the next step without Kageyama on the court. Ushijima takes the lead here, pleading his case for Kageyama to get a chance to compete with the rest. Top 8 at Nationals is not enough for a player like him. He wants to win the entire thing, and for that to happen, Kageyama needs to be starting. The Spring High tournament goes well, until they reach the finals where Kageyama has to go up against Oikawa. Even though Shiratorizawa is favored heavily in this game, they are pushed to the 4th set where Kageyama is starting to struggle. His relationship with Oikawa and the rest of Alba Josai brings up tendencies that he has tried so hard to leave behind. Then Ushijima gets blocked, and they give up the 4th set. Kageyama starts to push, and they go down early in the 5th. Ushijima assures him that he can get it done, and he starts going to his elite spiker, and points start racking up, but Kageyama knows that eventually he won't be able to get through. They arrive at set point and get a clean receive. Ushijima is ready to win them the match and send them to nationals, but a triple block is already there, and the fatigue of carrying the team in this 5th set for Ushijima is starting to approach. The middle's open. It has been all game. Kageyama makes the play that he knows is right. Kageyama sends the ball up the middle, but he knows it doesn't need to be the fastest. As long as Tendo gets there, it'll be enough. Tendo, in an unpredictable fashion, appears in the air before Kageyama could even think, and he gets the ball to Tendo's outstretched arms, and he slams the ball home for a win and a ticket to nationals. Even though they barely made it, there's a feeling about the team that they are better than they've ever been. The door to Kageyama reaching his full potential is now wide open, and Shiratorizawa goes into nationals with one of the best spikers and setters in the entire country, now one of the favorites to win the entire thing. With some injury luck, they reach it to the end of nationals, and once again, Kageyama plays his heart out and puts the ball where it needs to go. Shiratorizawa is now going to go down in history as one of the most dominant runs that Japan has ever seen. That is at least one outcome, but there are many difficult matchups ahead at nationals. And even though I still think a lot of them would be in Shiratorizawa's favor, let's analyze a few of them. Firstly, let's see how they compare to Inarizaki. Karasuno defeats Inarizaki in the 2nd round at Nationals in the show, partially because they were actually a pretty good matchup for them. The one area that Shiratorizawa would really struggle with would be receiving Atsuma's serve. Nishinoya, who is one of the best liberos in the entire series, struggled mightily against that serve. Shiratorizawa would certainly have issues there, and I would say it's the biggest weakness for them as a team. They don't have a dominant libero, and they want to hide Ushijima on the receiving end as much as possible to make turnaround attacks more quickly. Ushijima would likely be forced to receive a handful of serves because of the great placement that Atsuma has. This would certainly throw things into disarray for Shiratorizawa, but I think players like Goshiki and Tendo would end up making up for it in the end. This is a matchup that could really go either way, but Kageyama being willing to get Goshiki involved early and hitting Tendo up the middle means that over the course of the game, even if Ushijima has to spend more time receiving than he normally would, I still think they come out as the winner because he is still the best player on the court. Ushijima is methodical with everything he does, and in the end, I think he would be able to wear down Inarizaki with the help of Kageyama's growing confidence. Fukurodani and Kamomedai also present their own unique challenges. Bokudo's rise into one of the more consistent aces, in addition to the overall dominant roster that they have, would be a lot for Shiratorizawa to handle, and Kamomedai is one of the best walls in the country, but I actually think Shiratorizawa matches up better against Kamomedai than Karasuno in the anime because of Ushijima and how amazing he is at getting through the hardest triple blocks. And with all this being said, I think if Kageyama went to Shiratorizawa, that maybe more likely than not, as long as they have some injury luck, they would end up winning the entire thing. Kageyama and Ushijima then establishing themselves as superstars in the making. That's at least one potential outcome if Kageyama went to Shiratorizawa, but who knows, maybe they wouldn't even make it to nationals because Kageyama might have a breakdown without Hinata, and they would lose to Alba Josai and Oikawa. But in the end, I think one of the things we can take away from this is that in almost any situation Kageyama was put in, as long as he has players who challenge him, whether it's Hinata or Ushijima, he would still be able to reach his potential sooner or later. Thank you so much for watching this video. I know it's a little bit similar to the what if Oikawa went to Shiratorizawa, but I had a lot of people asking for it, and I still think there was a lot of interesting things to talk about when you take a player and put them in a new situation. Looking at the evidence in Haikyuu, I still think there's a lot of interesting outcomes to come there. You can definitely be expecting some Hunter x Hunter videos coming up soon as well. So glad that Togashi will be back, hopefully pretty soon. And of course, still waiting on Season 5 of Haikyuu. Thank you again, and I hope to see you in the next one.